Okay, this morning, what's changed since yesterday? Tropical Storm Ida is now much better organized than when we briefed yesterday. Now has sustained winds of 65 miles per hour, so just below a hurricane at this point. The forecast track has not changed much, however, and so our confidence is increasing in a track up into Louisiana. It is forecast now to be a major hurricane, as we hinted at yesterday. So as I said, Tropical Storm Ida, now a strong tropical storm with 65 mile per hour sustained winds. It could become a hurricane later today. There are hurricane watches in effect. They extend along the thin pink line along the map here from Cameron, Louisiana, over to the Mississippi-Louisiana border. There is also a storm surge watch from Sabine Pass to the Alabama-Florida border. So gives you an idea of the area of more significant impacts, not too far to our east, but at this time not really including southeast Texas. The system is forecast to cross the western part of Cuba and then rapidly intensify as it crosses the warm waters of the Gulf, heading up toward Louisiana. It is forecast now to be a major hurricane, a Category 3 at landfall. Could even be higher than that. It could be Category 4, certainly possible. The ingredients are really favorable for this thing to intensify over the weekend. So a very serious situation for our neighbors to the east. As far as the local area, though, our main impacts will be at the beaches with some increased surf and swell starting Sunday, maybe some minor coastal flooding around times of high tide. We will see some increase in winds, especially over our eastern areas. There is a chance they could gust up to tropical storm force, but that's not likely. Talking about places like Chambers County, Liberty County, and Bolivar Peninsula, closer to the track, but kind of on the western fringe of the circulation. And ultimately, that'll depend on the exact track and the size of the storm. It is actually forecast to grow a little bit in size as well. Here's a look at the satellite view. Most recently, you can see that cluster of thunderstorms around the circulation center there just south of Cuba. And that's our system getting organized. Still a tropical storm, but as I said, expected to be a hurricane before too long. As it crosses Cuba, that may slow the intensification just a bit, but when it lifts north of there, there's really nothing to prevent it from intensifying. Here's a look at the chance of tropical storm force winds from the National Hurricane Center. Think of this as a point probability. So what you see here are the highest values clearly over Louisiana, maybe over into Mississippi. But we do have some relatively high numbers here, say 30 to 40% for far east Texas and some of the adjacent coastal waters. And even for areas, like I said earlier, like Chambers, Liberty, Galveston Bay, even Galveston, our chances of tropical storm force winds 20 to 30%. So not likely to occur, and we're talking about 39 mile per hour winds sustained. But there is a chance, depending on the size of the circulation and the exact track. So just keep that in mind. But even then, we're not looking at really damaging winds, just kind of a windy period as we go through Sunday night into Monday. As far as when those winds are expected to arrive, tropical storm force winds likely to reach the Louisiana coast Sunday morning. And for parts of Texas that do see these, if they do come here, that would be Sunday 8 p.m., Sunday evening. So it gives you an idea of when, if we do get some windy conditions, that would occur more Sunday night. But much greater chances as you go east. Chance of hurricane force winds, again, zeroing in on that most likely area, portions of south central Louisiana. Have the highest probabilities of hurricane force winds, and This is for any point. Of course, we're forecasting a major hurricane, so don't pay too close attention to values 40 to 50% at the coastline. It's quite likely that some place will see some very severe winds, but use this as to indicate the most likely target area. Also note the probabilities are very low for Texas, so not expecting hurricane force winds from this system. Rainfall is going to be a huge factor for this as well. Many models slow the progression of the storm as it makes landfall, so as we all know, that's a recipe for a lot of rain. And you can see a few pixels here of pink. That's greater than 15 inches potentially in that New Orleans area, on top of the very high winds and storm surge that are expected there. So very serious situation, certainly for those areas. For us, we had some rain this morning along the coast and last night, and it was unrelated to Ida, and we could see some more of those kind of thunderstorms as we go through the next few days. So, some additional rain near the coast, but not so much related to Ida for our area. The tides, you can see, are running about 2.5 feet above normal. Above mean lower low water right now. Start to get impacts as we get 3.5 and above typically. And so you can see the black line here, and the gray shaded area is a measure of the forecast looking ahead, where the shaded area gives you an idea of some of the uncertainty depending on the track and the size of the storm. And what you can see are mean values that normally wouldn't cause us very many problems, up around 3 feet. But as we get into Sunday night and Monday, and even Saturday night, we do see some rise in the mean water level. What you have to keep in mind, though, this doesn't really account for the swell and the wave action coming in. So you can sort of add an effective 1/2 foot or even a little more to these values. Bottom line, we're not looking at the kind of flooding we saw last year with Laura, for example, but we do expect the possibility of some minor coastal flooding around times of high tide as we go into Saturday night and Sunday, and even Sunday night. And then we expect a low tide actually Monday afternoon or evening on the backside as the winds push more offshore. For the marine areas, some sort of benchmarks here. Arrival of 6+ foot seas starting Sunday afternoon for the waters 20 nautical miles or more offshore, and then within 20 nautical miles to nearshore coastal waters Sunday evening. Peak seas will depend on that size of the wind field. Best estimate, 8 to 10 feet along the upper Texas coast, a bit higher as you go a little further offshore, and then much, much higher closer to the track. But as far as the Texas coast, these values should apply. Seas improving to below 6 feet near shore late Monday. And we've already spoken about the wind timing. We could see some tropical storm force winds in our eastern waters, sort of adjacent to those land areas I described, Sunday night especially. And hurricane force winds not expected in the marine waters either. We already discussed that with the hurricane force wind probability maps. And again, looking at the possibility of some minor coastal flooding from a combination of swell and wave run-up that would be really starting Saturday night, but mostly Sunday into Monday. And I don't want to forget the rip current threat is going to be going up as well as we get swell coming out from the storm. So just to summarize, Tropical Storm Ida forecast across Cuba, then rapidly intensify as it crosses those warm Gulf waters this weekend. It is now forecast to become a major hurricane. The intensity forecast actually bumped up this advisory just a little bit to Category 3, but it could even be higher than that depending on how things go. Making landfall Sunday afternoon or evening along the south central Gulf Louisiana coast. It puts us on the west side of the circulation, by a pretty fair distance. So that means for us, our impacts will be mainly at the beaches and at the coast. We're talking about increased surf due to swell coming in starting Sunday, and some minor coastal flooding around times of high tide potentially, as well as the elevated rip current risk. And then it will get a bit windier, especially over our eastern areas. Not out of the question, could see some gusts up to 40 miles per hour. There's about a 20 to 30% chance of that occurring at any point. So more likely the winds will be below that. Confidence has been coming up. The system has pretty well-defined steering currents, so we're not expecting any surprises. Circulation does have to cross Cuba, and it has become better defined, so we're not anticipating any issues here. But it is still very important to monitor the forecast over the next 3 days to make sure that the storm sort of follows the script that we see. As far as additional briefings, we're not planning on any additional webinars for this storm. If the situation changes different from what we're briefing now, we will add those. And we will, in any event, continue to push out information by email. And you can see our website, social media listed there for staying informed.